Okay, we're done. Ashton, thank you very much for taking my call today. I have many questions related to your upcoming album, which releases tomorrow. How do you feel about it?
Oh, I'm excited. It's always exciting to share new work with the world, And this particular album is just very important to me. So it's extra exciting for me. And then, having seen how well people have responded to the first single and the video has been, very encouraging. So yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Well, yes, your upcoming album, Intervention Arts, well, comes from very different two albums. The first one being very electronic, the second one being heavier, but with this new single that you released, Mirror Midnight, well, it feels like old school, The Awakening, for saying so. Well, tell me about the importance of going back to the roots of your sound.
Well, it really just happened completely naturally and organically. I found myself listening to a lot of the same bands and records that I had listened to way back when I started, and I fell in love with it again. I just fell in love with that sound and that presentation, and then in the process, I think I fell in love with that version of the Awakening again, and I just wanted to. It's the 12th album. There's something special about that number, and there's I've been around for a little while, making music for a little while, and it just felt like it feels like a celebration to me. So I was celebrating the influences, and the influences are those old school gothic dark wave influences. And I just wanted the album to reflect that and celebrate it. So that's essentially how it happened.
Can you share with me some of the bands and albums that got you into this style of music in the first place?
Absolutely. I mean, the most prominent bands would be the Sisters of Mercy and Bauhaus, and pretty much all of their records. Their early albums, the first four Bauhaus records and the first three or four Sisters of Mercy albums were on regular rotation for me back in the day. And of course, bands like The Cure and Susie and the Banshees and Joy Division and Typo Negative on the more metal side of things, and the guy who stands and oversees all of it is David Bowie. He's the brightest light for me, and he's ultimately the one that inspired all of the bands I've just mentioned in some way are fans of David Bowie. So it all kind of goes back to him, and so I think you'll hear a lot of those the missions in there as well. Of course, those are Fields in the Nephilim. All those bands were big influences on the Awakening when we started, and I just kind of wanted to celebrate those roots.
Bowie gotta be the most important rock artist of the 20th century, don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's everything has something that goes before. Bowie was a fan of Little Richard, and he was a fan of Elvis, and Elvis in turn was a fan of blues music that keeps going back and back.
Yeah.
But I think, but I think for this genre in particular, I think we all owe a debt to David Bowie and how he transformed things, and of course, um, Iggy Pop and T Rex and all those guys that were around in those early 70s and enjoying Velvet Underground. All those artists ultimately have an impact on I think all art really, but specifically in the kind of the underground, the alternative movement.
Before going back to talking about the album, I find it very interesting that you mentioned typo negative, and trust me, it's not very common for me to listen to an artist mention them as an influence because I don't believe there's any band that sounds like them. They were so very different.
Yeah, absolutely. And they, I don't mean to lump them in with the original kind of gothic rock forefathers and all of that, but they definitely had an influence. The kind of the gothic metal thing that they brought to the party, the barit, and I have a naturally baritone voice, so I always tend to gravitate towards the singers that have, I guess, a similar range in some way in terms of getting started anyway. It was nice to hear other people that had my particular style of vocal doing good work, you know. And I think Typo had, I think the Bloody Kisses, October Rust, that era was really some beautiful songs and some great imagery. And I think I think bands like him and 69 Eyes, all these guys, they've all heard Typo Negative, you know. It's like we've all,
Yeah,
you can see the influence there, and certainly in the Awakening as well. So it's maybe not on this record particularly, but in on some other work. Yeah,
the last one especially, I believe.
yeah. There was some, definitely some Typo moments. I think some nods towards Typo Negative on that album. Sure.
Let's go back to the new album, especially the new single Mirror Midnight. I love the song and I also love the video because I found it to be a very interesting mix of these dystopian images with some film noir influences. And I also saw that you made the video. So tell me about it. Are you also a filmmaker?
I'm a filmmaker in training. I think I've always loved the visual medium. You know, I think even when I was literally just writing music, it always had a very visual inspiration and a visual manifestation for me. So to in more recent years, I'd say for the last 10 years, I've been making my own music videos, and it's been a wonderful extension of the story for me. You know, in the past, I would have to rely on someone else to help me realize that vision. But I'm very aesthetically driven in terms of imagery, in terms of film. I'm a big fan of film, of the work of people like Ingmar Bergman and his work in black and white, and the sort of minimalist approach and how much you can do with very little. These things interest me. You know, David Lynch, Jim Jarmusch, all these people have an influence on my film work, and I would love to develop what I do with music videos. I'd love to move into film at some point and to start with a short film, something like that. And I've been kind of working on that on the side. So I'm glad you like the video and that you see a little bit of a filmmaker in there, because I think he's waiting to come out.
And I hope it comes out. You mentioned Jim Jarmusch as one of your influences, and I do believe this black and white aesthetics of some of his films, like Batman, totally connects with the idea of the photography of this video, I believe.
Absolutely. You know, I think we're all influenced by everything we're exposed to, you know,
Yeah.
whether it's conversation or nature or film or relationships or music or art. And then you decide which little bits you'd like to incorporate into your world, you know, and some things you keep coming back to. And I think I mentioned those directors because for me they're timeless. Their work is timeless, and I can relate to it. I feel like I could theoretically make something that's in that exists in that world that they create, you know, or parallel to that world. I can't compete with an Avengers movie, you know, or a sort of mad big green screen action movie, and that doesn't really interest me. I'm more into the work of the people I mentioned.
Yeah, trust me, the world doesn't need any more Hollywood big budget
No,
blockbusters.
it really doesn't. You know, it's that just. I mean, I think I saw a little bit of one of the Avengers movies like 10 years ago, and then I thought it's just like watching a computer video game. You know, it's yeah, it doesn't. It's just not. I'm sure there are many people who love all of that kind of thing, and cool, good for them. But it's just not really something that I'm interested in. You know, I'd rather spend time with my cat than which I spend a lot of time with my cat as it is. So I'd rather, you know, I measure everything like, is this better than spending time with my cat? No, it's not better than spending time with my cat.
I love it. Uh, you mentioned how on your videos, the videos that you've been making for the past 10 years, you see your own filmmaker picking in and sometimes like waiting to attack. So at some point, are you currently working maybe on developing your own script, your own ideas, maybe to direct someone else's script? Have you been working on that?
Yeah, it's something, you know, I started writing books. Um, when I released Waiting for a Voice in 2020. And I've been writing since, since I could write. I've been writing stories, but and this all ties together. I'm not going off suddenly talking about books. I think, again, when you start writing, it started off thinking, oh, I'll just get some poems and maybe a short story or two down. And then I started really getting into the short story way of writing and telling a story that way, which is it's just different to a novel or a full movie. Short film's different to a full-length movie. And I have started essentially writing a little script or two or three on the side that I'd like to see happen. And I have, and whether it's entirely me or whether it'll probably end up being a collaborative project, I'd like to work with people who shoot better than I do and can sort of realize my vision, a little more professionally, I guess, than I'm able to do, and more efficiently. Because with me, a lot of the time I'm filming myself, and it's a lot of work doing it yourself, because there's a lot of do-overs when something wasn't in focus or something wasn't framed right or whatever. So I love collaborating with the visual works, probably even more than I enjoy collaborations in music itself. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, the thing is to keep on learning, and I'm pretty sure you eventually will come out with it. And I do have one last related question to film. I love film, so it's inevitable to me. Because a few years ago, you also worked for the score of a horror film, a Blumhouse production, actually. I believe that's quite interesting because it's also part of the Hollywood thing. But uh, was it difficult to you to work now your music for a film? And did you like the experience?
Yeah, yeah, I loved the experience. That film, I wasn't composing the music, but I was scoring. I was working with a composer,
Mhm.
so he would essentially have these melody ideas and things, and then I'd take them and develop them and make them sound all scary and edit it all to the image. So it was the first time I'd ever sat and scored a movie in the true sense of the word, where you're sitting with the timeline and going back and forth. And oh, I loved it, because for me, it was the complete reverse of what I've always done. I've always started with all the sounds, and then the images get built upon the sounds. So to be given the image first and say, now come up with the sound, was a wonderful experience, and I feel like I just dabbled in it, and now I really I want more, I want to do more of that. And the final prize would be, yes, to do entirely my own thing. But I do enjoy the collaborative. I enjoyed it in all art forms, but I'm particularly excited about it with film. And I think that I've been very fortunate to be introduced to people who specialize in that world, and I feel I can there's so much for me to learn, and then maybe bring a little bit of something of me into it that might be different for them, that they might enjoy. So yeah, I hope I answered your question. I might have gone off on a tangent there a
Oh,
little bit.
oh, it's okay. Well, Ashton, now let's get back to music for one last time,
Right.
because a few months ago I had the chance to talk with um, Michael Cirabolo from Beauty in Chaos, and you work on the last album also as a collaborator. Can you tell me how did you guys met? What do you enjoy about this kind of projects? Because I find Beauty in Chaos so fascinating because Michael wants to uh, generate this community of musicians, and they seem to get along pretty well.
Yeah. Well, Michael discovered me and what I do through a similar collaborative project that I'd done with Mark Gemini Thwaite, who played guitar for The Mission, and Peter Murphy, and artists like that. And I worked with Mark, and in his first project, he wrote all the music and had different singers come in and write the lyrics and sing them. And Michael first heard me in that context because Mark's also on Schecter Guitars, and Michael, of course, he's the president of Schecter Guitars.
Mhm.
Um, and so Michael and I got chatting, and he told me about this new project and what he had in mind. And I think at the time, the only song he had done was a song with Robin Zander of Cheap Trick. So I think I was one of the first, second or third person involved with that. And he sent me this music, which I just loved because it sounded like somewhere in the middle of my solo work and the awakening. It was kind of existing in this third point. And I wrote the lyrics and vocal for Storm like in 24 hours and sent it back to him. And he just loved it. And that song's become kind of the flagship song for the project. The lyric gets used in a lot of his branding and his I think the greatest hits is using a line from the song. And it's just it's so wonderful to see that happen and the evolution of the project. And you're right, it's like a family. The people that get involved become all part of this Beauty and Chaos family. And Michael is he's a really good human. He's a good friend, and he's a wonderful musician. And it's I've been involved in pretty much all of the Beauty and Chaos albums at this point. And I think this is the fifth song we've written together, called Made of Rain. And I think it's a lovely song. To me, it's one of the best ones we've done. And what have I missed in your question? I think I answered all your questions. Yeah,
Answer everything.
It's what I wanted to add is that you learn something with everything new that you do, even if it's just me working on my own. Inevitably, I'll figure out how to do something a little differently, hopefully a little better. But significantly, when working with Beauty and Chaos, I think because he and Michael Rosen are taking care of the music in every sense, and the production and the mixing and editing, all of that. So my role is just very different to when I'm creating my own work, because I'm coming into this semi-finished product, and I do add with arrangement and all that. Maybe we make this shorter and that longer, whatever. But they're doing the bulk of the work with the music by far. So it really gets me to really focus on the lyrics and how I sing them. And that was just one of those learning things that I could take and then apply to my own work and go, you should probably put that same effort into it for what you're doing, and I think I was, but when you work with other people, it just brings out a different work ethic in you and a different focus, I think. And that's what's so wonderful about all of it. Whether something becomes a hit or not, or whether it gets a billion streams or not, that's other stuff. That's kind of marketing, and it's the world, and it depends which way the wind blows and whatever.
Yeah.
But you still learn what you learn, and you still ultimately get to create something that wasn't there before. And each time you do that, it's very exciting to me. It's kind of addictive, which is why I've released so many records, and now books, and hopefully soon films. It's just, I'm inspired by everything, and I can't stop creating. And I think that's a wonderful problem to have.
I love the conclusion. A wonderful problem to have. Yeah, I do believe it's very important to just flow with all the things that get your imagination going and keep on working. I find it fascinating.
Absolutely, it's a gift, and
Yes.
it's a gift worth celebrating, and that is really how I look at every new thing I get to do, whether I'm driving the whole thing or whether someone else is, or where it's somewhere in the middle, or I'm just responding to something. Each thing, it's a gift. I'm getting to do this. It's amazing, and it's the same with live performance. It's the other half of the puzzle for me, because all the creating and the studio and all that is the one half. The other half is when you get to actually sit in a room with humans and connect in this wonderful, as I said, celebration. I feel you're all celebrating this thing that we've essentially both created, because if I created it in a void, it would be different, but I'm creating it to be enjoyed by me and by you, and it's so when that all comes together, that's when the whole circle is really complete. And it's I also think it's the last, it's one of the things that's going to stand the test of time as AI tries to take over the world, is actual live performance with real humans that you can touch and see that they're real, and I can speak to people after the show, or I can go to shows and support other artists. I think that that's going to be more and more focus will be on that, on the human experience, as we've got so much digital stuff, digital noise all over the place all the time. And now with AI, it's getting in everywhere, you know. So I think live shows, live performance, independent films that are not just AI generated rubbish, but are actually, you know, people trying to create things with their, you know, and develop their vision. I think that's life. That's all essential for us to continue as a productive, positive worldwide race of human beings. You know, it's just citizens of Earth, I guess. You know, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And well, I hope you can bring some of that live shows here to Mexico City one.
Oh, definitely. I've been wanting to do that for many years, and with this new record and the opportunity it's given me to speak to so many people like yourself, um, it has reminded me of the support I have in Mexico and Mexico City specifically, and how I've just never had the opportunity to perform there. And I think with the new record and essentially getting the awakening back on a stage again, um, we're definitely going to be speaking with promoters to see what we can arrange, because it's something I'd like to. I've just never had an opportunity to do it. I'd love to do it.
Awesome. Well,
Mhm.
Ashton, thank you very much for talking with me. I had a blast talking, and great success with this new album.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and your support, and I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.